Raven's Flight by Diane Sylvie. Chapter 4. Twilight descended like a gray cloak over the city. It was Raven's first night on the streets. What her mother would have called unsavory characters prowled the garbage-strewn alleyways. They were drawn magnetically to the corner of Main and Hastings. She walked until she came to a group of teenagers hanging out in front of the Balmoral Hotel. She didn't know if Lonnie was one of them, but she walked up to one of the girls in the group to inquire. "Is Lonnie here?" Raven asked tentatively. "What's it to you?" The girl scoffed. "I'm trying to find my sister." She held out the picture. "Where'd you get that?" the girl demanded. "It's my sister. Do you know her?" Raven asked hopefully. "What's it to you if I do or don't?" the girl challenged. She gave Raven a hard push on the shoulder. "Please, I've got to find her. Bertie told me she was down in this area," Raven pleaded. "Well, you ain't gonna find her here. Old Bertie should mind her own damn business," the girl snapped, grabbing the picture out of Raven's hand, scrunching it up and tossing it on the ground. Raven picked it up, smoothed it out, and walked down the block. "Do you know Bertie?" someone whispered from the shadows. "Yes, I know her. What's it to you?" Raven snapped, shocking herself. "Shh! Keep your voice down. Start walking and don't look back," he said. "Why should I? Who are you?" Raven asked. "I'm a friend of Bertie's. Maybe I can help you. Let me see the picture." Raven pulled the crumpled photo out of her pocket and passed it to him. He looked at it and passed it back. "Well, do you know her or not?" Raven asked. "Stay quiet and keep on walking. Yeah, I know her," he warned. He quickened his pace. Raven had to hurry to keep up with him. He turned the corner onto Main Street and stopped. "Why the hell are you asking all the guys where she is? Are you looking to get iced or something?" "What do you mean?" Raven gulped. "They're pushers, drug dealers. They work for Lonnie. If anyone messes with him or talks to the cops, they're history. A snitch's life is less than worthless on these streets. No witnesses, no testimonies, that's the rule. Your sister used to hang out with their boss. When she found out what a lowlife he was, she probably took off. Then they know where she is. I'm going back there to make them tell me," Raven stormed. "The hell you aren't. Weren't you listening? Those people would just as soon kill you as to look at you. You don't even know who you're messing with. The word on the street is she's probably dead anyway. Nobody's seen or heard from her in days." "I don't believe that. I'm going to get some food. Go back to the room and track her down," Raven replied. "Well, if you're going to a last minute on the streets, you'd better learn the ropes," he said. As they walked past the storefront vendor, still open for night business, her new friend slipped fruit into his pockets. "What are you doing? You can't steal that," Raven protested loudly. "Shh! Keep your voice down," he whispered. Raven followed him, but as soon as they rounded the corner, he stopped. "If you don't steal down here, you don't eat. Got it? The minimum I can survive on is $5 a day, and I barely make that panhandling. I have to shoplift when I'm desperate. That's life. Mine, anyways. Hey, you got any money?" he asked. "A little," Raven hedged. "Can you buy some milk for our supper?" he asked. "Okay, I guess so. Just don't steal anything else." She went to the store to buy a carton of milk and 2 candy bars. He grinned sheepishly at her and said, "Let's go," as they headed southward toward the industrial area. "Where are we going? Is this the way to Marcy's apartment?" Raven asked. "There's someone I want you to meet first, then I'll walk you back to her place," he replied. "By the way, I'm Ben." They continued on in silence. After a few minutes, Ben stopped in front of a deserted warehouse door, locked with a heavy padlock. He walked over to the corner of the building, stooped over and grasped the corrugated metal panel. He held the bottom corner away and motioned for Raven to go in, replacing the wall panel with practiced precision. Raven tried to look around the barely lit interior of the building, but the feeble light made it hard for her eyes to adjust. Ben ushered her into a small back room. "There's no place like home," he said. Raven heard someone talking. They weren't alone. On the far side of the room, an old woman, slightly familiar, sat reciting a story to 2 younger children. "I'm home," Ben called. "You're late, Ben. Anna and Robert were starting to worry about you," the old woman said with a concern in her voice. "I got sidetracked. Sorry," he said. "Well, never mind. You're home safe now. Who is this with you?" "Her name's Raven," he replied. "I remember you from the park. You were searching for your sister, right?" "My eyes aren't so good anymore. Broke my glasses a few years back," Bertie said. Raven stepped closer so the woman could see her more clearly. "You must be tired. Sit down and rest a while." "Time for supper." "Okay, everybody, ant up. What you got?" Ben prodded. He pulled the stolen fruit from his pocket and placed it on the old packing crate that doubled as a table. Bertie pulled some day-old buns out of her bag. "Pretty slim pickings. You got anything, kids?" Anna produced a half-eaten hot dog she'd found in the park. Robert held back, not wanting to share his findings with Raven. "Come on, do you have something or not?" Ben persisted. "Do we gotta share with her?" the boy whined as he jerked his head in Raven's direction. He was about 8, her brother's age. "You know the rules. Everybody at the table eats, whether they brought something or not." Robert reluctantly pulled 2 boxes of cold, greasy fries out of his pocket. He placed both on the crate. "Have you been dumpster diving again? You know I told you to stay out of those bins," Ben said authoritatively. "No, I found these on the table outside," he protested. Ben sliced the apples and orange into equal pieces. There were 5 buns, enough for everyone to have one. Ben cut the hot dog in half. He gave half to Anna and half to Robert. Bertie divided the fries equally between them. "You've got some milk, right, Raven?" Ben reminded her. Raven reached into her backpack and pulled out the carton of milk. He poured half of the milk into Bertie's special china bowl, old and cracked, but rimmed with delicate roses, then placed Bertie's bun in the milk to soak. Her teeth weren't as good as they used to be. It was an especially good night if they had milk. Most nights, Bertie had to soak her stale bun in water. "Wait a minute, I have a couple of chocolate bars," Raven announced. The children's eyes widened in anticipation. "Can we eat the chocolate first?" they chimed in chorus. "Well, I don't know. What do you think, Bertie?" Ben hedged. "Won't hurt them none. Long as they eat the rest of their supper." Bertie chuckled softly. "Cut the bars in 4. "You don't want a little, Bertie?" Ben asked her. He knew how much she loved chocolate. "You children will eat my share, won't you?" she coaxed. The children grinned. Ben split the bars into 4 equal pieces. Ben was worried about Bertie. She tired so easily lately and had trouble sleeping. Her breathing was becoming more and more labored. Quite often, she had pain in her chest that lasted for long periods. He tried to convince her to go to the free medical clinic with him, but she wouldn't admit she was ill. After dinner, the children begged for a story. "Tell us about when you were a dancer, Bertie." "Well, that was a long time ago. Yes, indeed, a long, long time ago. I was barely 16 at the time. A traveling roadshow came to town with women in beautiful costumes and actors decked out in fancy attire. I attended every performance. I couldn't get enough of the excitement, the laughter. When the show left town, I begged them to take me with. They hired me on as an assistant, and I filled in when one of the girls got sick. The show traveled from one town to another, but eventually it folded, and I found myself alone in Vancouver, a strange city. I was far away from my hometown with nothing to return to. My folks had moved away while I was on the road. I tried to find a job in the city, but work was scarce. Finally, I found a job as an understudy in a play. When the leading lady got sick, I got my lucky break. The day after the debut, the reviews in the paper mentioned me by name, even said I might have a starring role of my own one day. Bertie reminisced fondly. "Tell us about your costume, Bertie," the children prompted. My costume. Yes, my costume. Well, the gown was a midnight blue crushed velvet. I wore my long hair scooped up in a net with diamond-studded facets. The stage lights reflected their glimmering shine when I danced, and I actually was brilliant. I was special, really special. Her eyes had misted over. "At least I have the memory. I'll always have that," she whispered. "Well, enough of this nonsense. Time for bed, you two. It's after your bedtime already. You don't want Bertie to get cross, do you?" she said. Ben grinned. He had never heard Bertie utter an unkind word since he had known her. The children obediently got ready for bed, climbed into old sleeping bags, ragged and worn out, but clean. Bertie sat down on the edge of an old mattress and began singing softly to the children. She wheels her wheelbarrow through the streets broad and narrow, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. An hour later, Ben had escorted Raven back to her room and had whistled happily all the way back to the warehouse. "Bertie, I'm back," he whispered, as he entered their squatter's hideaway. Did you see Raven safely to her door? Bertie asked. Yes, I told her I'd meet her at noon tomorrow and help her look for her sister, Ben replied. Did you remember to ask her to the surprise tomorrow night? Yes, Ben said. Well, you can help me finish the decorations then, said Bertie. They made party hats out of folded newspaper. Bertie had been saving scrap material for weeks to make the birthday festive. She had fashioned origami birds, flowers, and garlands out of pieces of tinfoil, paper, and colored plastic. Tomorrow, I'll take the little ones over to Mrs. Larson's for the day. When we leave, can you decorate the room to surprise the children? Bertie asked. Sure, I'll do it just the way you showed me, Ben promised. Do you have enough for Robert's harmonica? Bertie asked. Yes, but I'm short $5 for the cake. I should be able to panhandle enough for that. Here, I've got enough for the book. I'll spot you $5. I can easily earn it tomorrow. If you make a couple of dollars panhandling, be sure to buy candles and a sparkler. Ben grinned and nodded. Ever since Anna and Robert's family had died in a fire and Bertie had taken them in, she had wanted to celebrate the children's birthdays. Because Anna and Robert didn't know the true dates, Bertie had picked a day at random and celebrated both together. Marcy awoke to the sound of the door closing behind JL. She had stayed at his apartment last night, afraid that Lonnie would come looking for her at her own place. She had slept on the couch and had a bad kink in her neck. She got up and stretched, walked over to the fridge and took out a carton of orange juice. Yesterday, after passing out and walking to an empty apartment, she had been startled by a harsh rap on the door. Lonnie had slammed his fist in like a battering ram, so hard it had ricocheted off the wall. Where the hell have you been? I ain't seen or heard from you in days. He had accused, towering over her. Marcy had taken a few steps backwards, but he had grabbed her roughly by the arm and jerked her toward him. Answer me, damn it! Where have you been? He had snarled. I was here the whole time. I was sick. You got somebody else or something? His vice-like grip had intensified, threatening to snap her arms like twigs. No, there's no one else, Marcy had gasped, afraid to tell him that there was, though. There better not be, or I'll have to kill him, he had promised coldly. His tight hold had relaxed on her arm. Telltale red finger welts discolored her skin. Get ready, we're going to party, he had ordered. I don't want to go to any more parties, Marcy had said quietly. Why not? Lonnie had snapped. Because I'm through with the drugs. Yeah, sure, me too, Lonnie had chuckled. No, I'm serious. Well, we'll see. You'll be crawling out of your skin without a fix. You know where to find me when you need me. It won't take long before you come begging for a little picker-upper. Suit yourself. There'll be plenty of other girls at the party anyway, Lonnie had yelled over his shoulder. Marcy had stood at the door listening to his heavy feet tromping down the stairwell. Lonnie often hit the girls who worked for him. They learned to do whatever he said and fast. There was no telling when he'd fly into a violent rage. When Marcy first started going out with Lonnie, he couldn't do enough to convince her it was all worth it. His main girl, Jilly, was soon forgotten. He was too busy grooming Marcy to bother with Jilly anymore. Jilly still hung around, hoping Lonnie would get tired of Marcy and take her back. She disappeared for hours each day, but always returned with money. Once, when he thought she'd kept some for herself, he smacked her hard across the mouth and told her she hadn't been earning her keep. When he finished berating Jilly, he realized that Marcy had seen the whole sordid episode and turned on his false charm. She fell for it, and soon she found herself in Jilly's position, Lonnie's property. She would be his to do with as he wanted. Once he had someone in his clutches, it was impossible to break free. He told her she owned the group, would have to start working and contributing her share. I'm going to do what I came to do, get a job, Marcy told JL later in the park. I'm through with Lonnie, with every part of that life. I've learned my lesson, she pledged. He's very dangerous, you know. His brother is the center of the drug trade. Whatever goes on in or out of that harbor, his brother has a hand in. Lonnie is his right-hand man. He pushes drugs. He also supplies him with the young runaways, JL told her. What do you mean, supplies him with young runaways? The word on the street is that the same ship that brings in the drugs takes and returns cargoes of young kids to various ports in Asia, said JL. Lonnie always went out of his way to talk to young kids, looked out for them on the streets. When they arrived with nowhere to go or no money, he was the first to buy them food or give them spending money or new clothes. He even helped send some of them home, Marcy said. What do you mean, send them home? JL asked. Well, he got Jake to take them to the bus depot and gave Jake money to buy them a ticket home. Did you ever see or hear from them again? No. You mean everyone he talked to decided to go back to the small towns or suburbs to where they were running away from? JL challenged. Do you even find that a bit suspicious? Jake probably drove them to the docks. Lonnie did make a mark in his book every time he sent a new kid home. I asked him about it and he chuckled and said he was keeping track of his good deeds. I didn't think anything of it at the time. A record of the names. Perhaps his sister's name was in that book, JL thought. He had promised his mother he would find her, but when he had shown her picture on the streets, everyone who remembered her, seeing her, had said she'd only been around for a day or two, and they hadn't seen her again after that. Do you know where he keeps this book? JL said guardedly. Yes, in his safe. Just before Jilly disappeared, she told me she was tired of Lonnie beating her up all the time. She said she had jacked his duplicate set and they contained enough evidence to put him behind bars for a long time. She said she didn't want to end up like some of the other girls. Missing, dead, or sold. I didn't believe her. I thought she was just jealous, Marcy admitted. Did she tell you where she stashed it? In her room. She lived in the same room I lived in now. She was roommates with Rita before I moved in. She didn't tell me where in the room she had hidden it, but it shouldn't be too hard to find. The next thing I knew, she was missing.